Kyle got great success with his specific person by using law of assumption. Kyle has been on this journey, I think, for a while now, but I'll get all the info from Kyle. Hi, Kyle.
Hi, Maria. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to help other people.
That's the whole point of this. I just feel like there's not enough people being interviewed. Like you see usually like a blurb on TikTok, or a coach will read like a success story, but you don't get all the details, like what happened. And that's the whole point of this, right? The nitty gritty, what you felt worked for you, what didn't. That way other people can learn. Where in the world are you, Kyle?
I am living in Johannesburg, that's in South Africa.
Have you known about law of assumption?
I found out about the law of assumption, I think it was about March of last year. That's when I found it. I was just scrolling. I was actually, the way I stumbled onto law of assumption was I met my specific person and I was really in love with him, and I started, I was into law of attraction, and I was just on YouTube looking for the right technique to manifest an SP. I was looking for spells, witches, all that kind of stuff, and I actually stumbled onto Sammy Ingram, and I started watching her videos, and that's how I got into the law of assumption.
That's awesome. I'm a huge fan of Sammy. I think she does an absolute great job breaking it down. So you've been in it, sounds like, for a little bit over a year, closer to a year and a half. If you want to explain what happened with your specific person and then how you applied this into your life.
So I really want to start off from the start, before I even knew about the law of assumption. It was lockdown, and lockdown wasn't really the easiest year, and I knew one thing that was very important for me while I still was in the law of attraction was I had this obsession of finding my soulmate, and I remember seeing a video about making a list of what specific characteristics you want in your SP. So I made a list. I was very specific. I included characteristics like he needs to have curly hair, he has to sing, he has to be very kind, he has to be a soft-spoken person. I really got specific in what I wanted, because I really believe that if you're clear with what you're manifesting, it's just going to happen so much faster, and it's going to be a much more easier journey. So I got really specific on that, and then a few months passed. My SP is actually an entertainer, and I saw him perform. Saw him performing in a theater, and that was the first time I actually saw him. So obviously went onto YouTube, trying to find the miracle method to manifest him, and that's when I stumbled onto Sammy Ingram, and I started learning about how the subconscious mind really manifests in our reality. I also read, I think it was Dr. Joseph Murphy, who wrote The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, and I started really getting into the scientific reason of how this is possible. And that was really the turning point for me in my manifestation journey. But I also didn't really understand the basics of how the law of assumption works. So I was affirming all day obsessively. I was visualizing as much as I can. I was practicing the state akin to sleep. I tried all these different techniques, and it went on for an entire year. And I had some very odd behavior. My SP would compliment me and then ghost me for months on end. And it really, it wasn't really a fun experience, but one day I just made that decision. You actually made a video about that. Your specific person is meant for you.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about my
yes.
Yeah. Oh, so it inspired you, because I believe you said that along your journey you found Sammy, and then what were the two other coaches that you found? Me and
Manifesting with Kimberly.
It was wonderful. Okay, so you found that video. Oh, I'm so glad that it inspired you.
I saw that video a few months ago, I believe, where you explained that if we desire a specific person, it's meant to be. And I watched Manifesting with Kimberly. She does a great job in explaining states, and I started really just utilizing manifesting through states of consciousness. Basically, how I would do that is I would just really keep my thoughts in line. If I stumble off or have that negative thoughts come up, I wouldn't necessarily flip it like most coaches say. I would just ask, why am I actually having this experience? And then when I actually found much more success with that, me and my SP were really good, and then he just ghosted me for 2 months. So that wasn't really a fun experience. So I stuck to just working on my self-concept, because that's another very important aspect of me. Because looking back at my manifesting journey with my SP, I realized I had some underlying assumptions that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't chosen, and I started just really working on getting my self-concept up to where we're supposed to be, by just doing the things I love. And every time I would take a shower, I would just look in the mirror and say, I really love my body, I love who I am, and I love how confident I am. I would do rampages, and that would really just help me build the threshold or the foundation in my self-concept. And I realized that things around me started, in my manifestation journey, really started coming in. I would have a lot of money manifest in. I would have a lot of random SPs that wasn't my romantic interest. And I never really understood why I didn't manifest my SP and why I was being ghosted. But then I also looked at it this way. You can have specific assumptions about your SP that can actually stop you from manifesting them while having a great self-concept. And I realized that mainly I still had the assumption from past experiences I had with him that he doesn't initiate conversation. He really doesn't care to reach out to me. Just all those things that I wasn't really a priority through experiences I had with them. So I started scripting or writing down how I want him to be, or what's the new version of him going to be like. And I was really specific on it. I was like, I'm not going to tolerate him not making me a priority, choosing his work over me. And I just kept persisting. It was really hard. I also struggled a lot with stalking his social media. So I had to learn to let go of that habit, and I started slowly letting go of all those habits that kept me back, stalking his social media, checking who he's hanging out with, trying to know what's going on in his life. And I just turned the focus back onto me, and why do I want this relationship? Why do I want this person? What's in it for me? And I really just focused on everything I wanted. And that's when 2 months of contact him, and he basically just apologized for everything he did. And we started going on dates, and he's just really been very more receptive, and being the version of him that I wanted him to be.
That's amazing. Can you get in a little bit more about how you noticed that even though you had a good self-concept, he still wasn't showing up? Because you mentioned that earlier, and I think that's something that I've heard some coaches say, oh, if you have the perfect self-concept, your SP will come back. And I've had that too, where in the past I used to believe that, right? And that's a huge misconception in the community, because you might have a limiting belief in the way, like, I can have anyone but this one, right? So you need to work on the beliefs that you have on your SP, and you said that earlier. So if you can enlighten us a little bit more on that, I think some people would really benefit from that, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course. So initially my experience was, after I really worked on my self-concept, I would notice all my manifestations and stuff really come in, and I would notice while manifesting my SP, I would constantly check the 3D and be like, but why isn't this coming in? Why isn't he choosing me? And I realized while I do have a great self-concept, focusing on all the areas of my life, I felt really good about everything. When it came to my SP, I still had or I still felt the need to check the 3D. I still was wondering, why isn't he messaging me? I am good enough, so why isn't this working? And my SB suffers from depression, and he has some mental health problems. And I realized that was mainly because I had the assumption that he did it, and my focus while manifesting him, I noticed while talking to my friends, I kept reaffirming the old story, or my old beliefs about him, that he's not ready for a relationship. He's afraid of rejection because he's afraid of getting hurt because of his past relationship experiences. And I realized I wouldn't talk necessarily about any other of my manifestations in that way. And that's really when I realized I can say I have a self-concept all I want, but this guy is not going to come back into my life if I don't change the way I see him and see the way he's showing up.
Is it not safe to say, please elaborate on this? Well, number one, right, if you were stalking, they weren't the version that you imagined, because you're not seeing what you want. And then anything other than, I think you mentioned too, like, right, talking to your friends about it, right? Talking about how they didn't want to be in a relationship and they're going through all this stuff, because then we're predominantly focusing on what we don't want and acting as if, and also imagining the version that you wanted. It was like you decided, no, I'm not going to play with this, this version of them anymore. I'm going to play with this one. And then it sounds like that's when things really shifted for you, if I'm correct.
So my experience with manifesting my SP was I kept noticing that I was reaffirming the old story about him. I can't remember who made a video about saying that every state comes with its own set of actions in the 3D.
Yes.
So I kind of tested that out, and I really started just changing a few things about. I would see my SP. My SP isn't really a person who's active on social media. So I would test out affirmations like, I am in the state of my SP who is active in social media. And he would start posting more on his Instagram. And I would realize that that is actually, with all of my other manifestations and my self-concept, I was in a state of manifesting that, but I still had this one predominant assumption that my SP is not prioritizing me, and that he was basically ghosting me. And once I really just persisted and focused on the version of him, ignoring the 3D reality, and kept on going in my journey, I started seeing how he changed, how his behaviors changed. And he started being more consistent with the version I wanted him to be.
That's awesome. And that's the version you have now, right? The version of you that you're dating and that you're happy with and things are going well. Yeah. So if you don't mind sharing, what do you think was the most difficult part of this journey? Because I think a lot of us trip up, and for myself included, and I don't know if this has been your experience, but you can get stuck in the wrong state for a long time because you're focusing on the wrong thing. You kind of mentioned earlier how you noticed you were being different with your other manifestations versus him, but was there a pivotal moment for you where you're like, I don't know, you just made that shift, just understanding that, hey, I'm treating everything else differently. It was kind of this understanding, like, not that you had put it on a pedestal, but you had a different awareness when it came to your specific person versus other things, right?
Yes, I definitely had that moment for a very long time. I actually noticed that I was doing it for almost an entire year. I would consistently watch YouTube videos all day about manifesting a specific person. I would go onto TikTok and I would watch psychic and tarot readings and all that stuff, talking about your SP. And I kind of took the stuff I saw in the 3D, and I started realizing I'm really over-consuming and not applying the things that I'm being learned. And I realized that I'm not really doing the things that I love anymore, and I'm not taking the time to focus on myself. For over a year, or almost a year, it was just about my SP. When I would get home in the evenings, I would just go onto YouTube and watch I would watch Keep Manifesting with Kimberly and Sammy Ingram on repeat. I would go onto TikTok and watch your videos and really trying to find the perfect technique to manifest it in. And when I just realized when I started really understanding states, that was really the changing point for me. Also, something that I utilized with manifesting my specific person was understanding thoughts transmission. That was really the changing point for me. I understood that if I just assume my SP is thinking positively of me, those thoughts are being transmitted and he has to act in that way. So I really just started, I would take 1 to 2 hours max a day to focus on my manifestation technique. I usually mostly do scripting and affirmations. And then I would completely forget about it for the rest of the day. And I would just focus on my life, do the stuff I used to do, pick up hobbies. I actually started learning to do tarot cards, which I really enjoy. And whenever my thoughts from my SP came up, I just made sure that they were coming from the end result, what I wanted to experience, and not really dwell in the negative. And if a negative thought would come up, I actually also in the experience dealt a lot with anxiety. I wouldn't suppress the feelings. I would just simply ask myself, why am I having this thoughts? And I would use EFT tapping to let go of all that anxiety. And that really helps me. And that was the turning point, taking all the focus off of my SP and turning it back onto me, because this manifesting isn't just about manifesting your person or money. It's a lifestyle. It's who you are. You manifest what you are, not what you want. And I had to learn that the hard way.
100%. I think you made a really good point that once you just started assuming, right, you created a new belief. My SP only thinks positive things about me. That's all you had to do. You didn't have to sit there and have a million ideas of what he's thinking. You just chose that. You believed in that. And then I think another good point you brought up, and not a lot of people talk about this, is that you dealt with the emotions when they came up, right? When the fear, when the anxiety came up, you tapped it out versus running from it. And I think there's only a few ways you can deal with it constructively. I like to sit with it, right, until I get it to a 0. I don't know if you've seen those new videos that I've created. You either need to feel it through breath work, through feeling it, or through tapping it, right? Because when you're tapping it out, but you're also feeling it in your body. And I think a lot of people miss this stuff. And the problem is you never really deal with the emotions. And this is why we teeter-totter back and forth between, right, the reality that we want and the reality we don't want. This is why we're hot and cold. And this is why our people are hot and cold. And I think you had some amazing teachers along the way. I'm a huge advocate for Sammy Ingram. I think she does a great job. I'm best friends with Kim. I love her. I think she does a great job as well. You had amazing teachers along the way, I think. And when you told me that, it made me feel good. I was like, yes, because I love them both. They resonate for me. And on top of that, right, you were feeling it. And I feel like so many people, instead of dealing with the resistance, because resistance is anything that you feel negative to, like when your ego tries to fight you, or it's just a trigger, right? As long as you feel it, it's going to go away, but you have to constantly feel it in order to entertain the state or the reality that you want, or the version of your person. And then when you finally are able to do that, and then you entertain the version that you want, it'll come through. And that's what you did. And I think that's wonderful. The other good thing you did was you didn't obsess over your SP. You let yourself have a life. You got into tarot, right? You started focusing more on, and this isn't about how much you think about them or how much you don't think about them, but you're like, yeah, I want them, but I'm more important, right? At least that's what I got from it when you were saying it, because you are the most important thing in this journey, not your SP. Your SP to me is like the cherry on top, right? Because we can have a million other SPs, but you know, the reason you want your SP is because they're meant for you.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's a vital point on this journey. Moving forward, are there other things that you're planning on manifesting? Are there any other like success stories that you've had, if you want to share them, that you were like, whoa, like this stuff really works?
So I live in South Africa, and we don't really get a lot of international celebrities who are really popular that come to our country. And my something I really enjoy is watching RuPaul's Drag Race. And one of the contestants who competed on Drag Race was a drag queen called Manila Luzon. She's actually very talented. She's also very popular in the drag community, and I really, really had the desire to meet her. And I remember about 2 months ago, I was discussing this with my cousin, and I was telling her how unfortunate it is that celebrities don't come to South Africa, that I'll probably never meet her. And my cousin actually told me, well, you're just reaffirming that. If you keep thinking that way, it's not going to happen. So I didn't really obsess over it. Every day I would just write in my journal, I'm so happy that I met Manila Luzon, and I would occasionally visualize seeing her. And a few days ago, I was scrolling through Instagram, and I actually saw that she announced she's doing a tour in South Africa at the end of the month. So that was one crazy experience I had with the Law of Assumption.
That's wonderful, because that's how easy it is, right? Like, you had no resistance to it. You probably didn't even know 100% that if you were going to manifest it or not, but like, you didn't have any resistance to it.
I really went into it with the thought of, I'd be really happy if this happened, but if it didn't happen, I'll also be okay with that. And I really didn't even obsess over it. I didn't think about it a lot. I just, I kind of didn't even really, this is also another thing I learned, that you don't really have to believe that it will happen. You just have to be consistent. I didn't believe she would come here, but I just stuck with persisting in it, and it happened.
Yep. You don't have to fully believe either, but you have to believe it's a possibility. I mean, that's what my beliefs are, because if you don't believe it at all, right? Like, if you have this assumption that nothing ever works for me, even if things do, and you're in that state, it's going to be hard to manifest from that state, and you might not be able to. Just based off of our conversation, you have a belief that things can happen. We're like, oh, it does happen, it doesn't, but you are still entertaining it in your mind. And I think because you had no resistance to it, it instantly manifested for you. And I think that's wonderful. And it wasn't just some drag queen, right? This is someone that you admire, you wanted, and you got the exact specific person you wanted, right?
Also realized in this journey is that it really, really boils down to assumptions, because I realized that I've been manifesting SP specific people so easily, but when it came to my romantic interest, because I had this assumption that it's a very hard process and a very hard thing to do, I never really had results with it. Like, another crazy experience I had was 9 years ago, when I was still in school. There was this girl, I can't even really remember her name, but she was very different. And at the beginning of the year, my cousin came to visit me, and she was also in the school with me. And for 9 years, I didn't know what this girl looked like. I couldn't remember her name. And I asked my cousin, do you remember the girl was very different in school? And she remembers the girl. And I just thought to myself, it would actually really be funny to see her again, or somehow get in contact with her again. And about a month later, and I didn't even entertain that thought at all. It was just like a passing thought. A month later, she messaged me out of nowhere. She found my number on Facebook, and she didn't even know who I was. She just messaged me because she wanted to know something about what happened when we were still in school.
That's wonderful. See, it was just a passing thought. It would be nice to see her again. Boom. You got the experience. I bet you're much more aware that you're in power, right? I think as you go along this journey, things do get easier, because you're like, of course it's going to work. And especially if it's something that you're indifferent to. And I think that's why a lot of people don't get their specific person until they're indifferent. Instead of focusing on what they do want, they're focusing on what they don't want. And then when they finally give up, they release all that resistance. And then boom, they pop in and they're like, what? I've been trying for months or years, and now? And it's because it's like, yeah, because you're finally okay without it, because they weren't able to drop the resistance the other way. And unfortunately, sometimes, you know, it unfolds differently for everyone, but and some people give up in the process because they change so much that they don't want their specific person. It just really depends. But the truth is, you can always get anyone, and you can recreate anyone. So, and it sounds like you're great at this.
It's just transmission. They're only showing up the way you expect them to be. And one thing I really also learned along my journey is that you can watch all the manifestation coaches. You can watch all the videos you want. I did that for an entire year and got nowhere. You can read all the books you want. You're not really fully going to believe it till you prove it to yourself and you start applying this. If you just overconsume the content and don't really do the effort to consciously change the way you think about stuff, it's not going to change.
I can't agree with you more. You touched on it earlier and I forgot to mention it, and I'm so glad you did again. I got in a rut like this a while ago too, and I remember when I was newer to this and I was still not seeing the changes I wanted, and I was following this coach and that coach. And another thing, I mean, I don't know if this happened to you too, but when you watch too many coaches too, because it's all different perspectives, you get confused because sometimes what one person says kind of contradicts the other. So you have to make sure, like the fact that I think the main people that you liked was Sammy, me, Manifesting with Kimberly. We have similar styles, I would say. We have a similar vibe, which I think is wonderful. And you knew that and you stuck with us, and it allowed you to manifest what you wanted. But like you said, you could have sat there and watched as many videos as you want. Consuming videos isn't manifestation. It's about applying it. And that's the hardest part, because that's the part where you got to focus on what you want. You got to deal with the stuff, and you got to like put it into action, because that's the only way you're going to believe it, is when you see it yourself. You can watch a million success stories as well.
And manifesting isn't really hard. It just takes the discipline to not give up on yourself and to actually commit to the new story. It just takes persistence and the discipline. It doesn't require any physical effort. All the effort is actually just mental. So I really don't see why people should give up on manifestation. It's not like you're spending money or anything. All you're really doing is letting go of all negative thoughts that don't serve you. And I actually see that as a win.
100%. And I think you made a great point. It's not that it's hard. It appears to be hard. But when you really start applying it and putting it into your life, it's so much easier. I agree with you.
It's only hard to get disciplined and committed. But once you are disciplined enough to stick to the news story, it really is a very easy process.
Extremely. I think as time goes on, you realize different things and you understand it at a deeper level, right? Like when you first start out, you think it's about thoughts. Then you realize it's about beliefs. Then you really realize that it's about states. You even asked me earlier, can we talk about states? And I was like, please. Because for me, that's when everything really shifted, when I really got into states. Beliefs helped, but the states create the beliefs. So if you're in a state where you believe certain things, boom, the beliefs and the thoughts follow. So it gets a lot easier.
What I really like about states is I really believe in quantum physics. And the CIA actually proved this research project they did called the Gateway Project, where they discussed different states of consciousness, and they literally have a paragraph called patterning where they talk about if, I can't remember, I think it was, they talk really scientific, I can't remember what they called it, but they basically talked about once you can conceive the idea and you stick with it, the 3D hologram moves to bring it forth to you. And I've seen so many scientific evidence that really strengthened my theories in this, but I really love states because it comes from the idea that there are infinite realities with infinite possibilities. So it really shouldn't even take forever to step into the new state. You just have to commit to it, and it can really be instant because you're just moving into that new state.
Oh yeah, for sure. Can't agree more. Well, it's been wonderful having you, Kyle. Is there anything else you want to share?
I do actually want to mention one more thing.
Please.
That I realized along the manifestation journey while I was manifesting my SB. Another thing I really struggled with was while manifesting him, I was really concerned about how it was going to happen. And I really couldn't comprehend how it's going to happen. I mean, he was ghosting me for 2 months. How are we going to end up in a relationship? And I really realized along the journey that worrying about the how and the when really doesn't matter, because if you just stick to the news story, it happens in the most bizarre ways you can't even imagine. But it always happens in its own way.
100%. And I would say too, and I'm sure you'd agree with me on this, that it always like when you just stick to the story and allow things to unfold, even if it looks like it's not, because sometimes it looks like a shitstorm, right? Like sometimes you're looking and you're like, you think it's the apocalypse. You're like, it's all upside down, but that doesn't mean anything. anytime you go with it, it comes like that. But when we're like, that's not what I wanted, that's not working in my favor, guess what? You just delayed it. Not, forever, but you delayed it a little bit.
Just go with the flow and let things happen when it happens.
I just made a video about that on YouTube.
I saw it. That's what I'm actually referring to.
Yeah, you all forget that. But I think that's a very vital thing. And for me, when it hit me recently, it was like, it really has allowed me to just allow things and be a bit more, at peace. And the funny part was, I was also manifesting becoming the version of me that is more at peace, right? And more, trusting. So boom, I got it. I got that, and I got what I wanted. So I think you make a great point. We don't know how it's going to happen, and who cares? It doesn't matter.
As long as you get it at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
And later on, you'll realize like, wow, it worked in the most beautiful, perfect way for me. And it really does, because sometimes it makes you do a couple detours so you can work through those things so you can finally get what you want. So
that is actually what my entire journey with my SP was. I really see it looking back. Me and my SP really have so much things in common. We have so many similar experiences we share. And I really believe at the end of the day, it was my God self that really put him on my journey, and he's ultimately my soulmate. I can see that. But before being ready to be with him, I had to go through my own experiences. I realized while manifesting him, jealousy would come up, me not feeling good enough, and I realized I had to work on all these different areas before I am ready to be in a relationship and be my best self. I really saw me manifesting my SP was actually its own bridge of events to not only be together with my SP, but also grow as a person myself.
Well, because at the end of the day, everyone is you, so you're just facing yourself. It's a journey of overcoming yourself and manifesting better versions of yourself, because everyone is you. When you finally really get that, that's when it works a lot better. But yeah, it's definitely a journey. Can't agree more with you.
And I also just wanted to share a tip because I know a lot of people struggle with this, stalking the social media. That's something I struggled with for a very long time, and I know I'm guilty of that. One thing that really worked for me was when I wanted to go onto a social media or send him a message to try and get his attention, I would immediately just turn off my phone. I would close my eyes and I would use the whisper method. And in a conversations as a form of thought transmission. And I really focused on just telling my SP what I wanted to tell him. And I would also imagine hearing my SP say the things I wanted to hear from him. And when we started talking again, he actually confirmed to me that he had those exact thoughts. I never told my SP that I consciously manifested him, but I asked him what was his experience, why did he ghost me? And he said to me that he basically never knew or never felt good enough to be with me. And he never knew if he should reach out, because the one day he felt positive that he wanted to be with me, and the next day you would have second thoughts, and that I actually saw that was hard and cold behavior. They really do pick up on our thoughts. And when I utilized thought transmission and stuff like the whisper technique, I really realized that they do pick up on that. I really enjoyed that experience as well.
The whisper technique to me is nothing more than inner conversations with your SP. You are connecting with them in that moment. You don't think you are.
It's basically telepathy.
It is. It's telepathy. We're always communicating with our person. I tell people from the moment you think of them, you're calling them. What do you want to tell them? Careful on what you're focusing on. It doesn't matter if it wasn't great. But you even said that he said some days he felt great and wanted to contact you. And these are probably the days that you were affirming and feeling wonderful. And other days you were like, not feeling so great. And he picked up on that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so they're definitely always being affected by us, but we just need to become the version of us that can manifest them, and then focus on the version that we want, not we don't want. And that's the most important focus on this journey, and it's all about us. Like, don't just make it about them. Like, you're the Grammy, not them. They're the person presenting the Grammy. They're the guest speaker unless you decide to go to someone else, because you always have that right too. You could be with someone for a few years and then maybe you change your mind. All a part of the process, and there is no right or wrong to this. You could be with someone and then realize, ooh, I can manifest my childhood crush from 5. I've always really loved him and want to be with him then, or her. Then get them. There are no limits to this. Absolutely.
There are absolutely no limits. My SP is actually quite popular in South Africa. He is a singer and he is starting to build up quite a following. And I really don't understand why people have this concept that manifesting celebrities is hard. It's literally just another normal person. You can literally manifest anyone, including celebrities.
1000%. There is no difference. And you manifested so many of them. That him, the drag queen, so wonderful. And your friend, well, your friend isn't a celebrity, -1.
Well, I also have I have manifested a few celebrities responding back to me on my direct messages.
That's awesome.
So they're just really normal people.
They really are. When I first started my TikTok, I don't know if you know who Jenny McCarthy is. She's more of like an American celebrity. I always admired her, loved her. And when I saw her on TikTok, I was like, oh, I'm going to follow her. Literally like 2 months later, she's commenting on my videos and we're now friends.
Isn't she a comedian actress or comedic actress?
Kind of.
That's Melissa McCarthy. Sorry, I'm confused.
Oh, no. Jenny McCarthy. So she used to be on MTV when I was like a really little kid. So she's kind of like a model actress. She was on this show called Singled Out, like in the 90s. And she's married to, I can't think of his name. She's a really popular, really famous actor husband, and it's just not coming to me right now. And she's a huge advocate for children with autism because she has an autistic son. She's really into spirituality, which I love and admire her for. Yeah, it just, sometimes you're just like, whoa. Like, right, it was just a passing thought. Oh, I love her. Like, I wasn't even trying to collab with her, but boom, she collabed with me. I just thought about her, and that's happened to me a lot too. But no, it's wonderful, and I agree with you. Like, you can manifest anyone, and celebrities are literally no different. I've manifested being in the same room with Oprah, not actually talking to her. I had always wanted to be on a Steve Harvey show. I manifested that years ago, manifested a lot of celebrities, running into them. There's definitely no difference.
There are no difference.
Nope.
There's no such thing as big or small manifestations, which also a lot of people seem to misunderstand. Manifesting a cup of coffee, manifesting an SP is all the same. It's just because you think it's harder that it's going to be harder.
Said perfectly, Kyle. I couldn't have said it any better. Thanks again for being on, Kyle. It was a pleasure having you.
It's a pleasure talking to you too.